time to get out your do-rag, start repping the 313, start cheering for the Pistons, start cheering for the Red Wings, start cheering for the Lions, even though they're suckers. Yeah, that's right. Rep Detroit, because it is the day of the release of the new Eminem album entitled Recovery. Now, of course, as you know from my last account, Cover Killer, Eminem was one of only 2 rappers that I actually covered. The other one being Lil Wayne's Rebirth. And the reason why I even covered Rebirth was because, 1, I wanted to show the fact that Lil Wayne seems to be everywhere, and number 2, because it was considered to be a pretty bold experiment, and after listening to it, I was able to determine this was an experiment that should have been aborted, much like many people think Lil Wayne should have been, or much like ICP fans wish that Eminem would have been. However, Recovery is the 3rd album that Eminem has released ever since his long absence, which was due to a lot of drug use and a lot of depression that happened over a 5-year period between 2004 and 2009. Last year's Relapse was seen to be somewhat of a return to form, however, many true fans felt a little bit distant to this album, kind of like his last release prior to going into Reclusion, which is so unimportant that I don't even recollect the name. And then he, of course, released Relapse Refill back in December. Now, this originally was supposed to be Relapse Part 2, so to speak. However, what it ended up being was just a 7-track add-on to the Relapse album itself, including the popular single that he did with Drake and Lil Wayne, as well as Kanye West. Recovery is seen to be Relapse Part 2. Now, Recovery is going to be the standalone title for this album, and it was released today. Actually, it was released yesterday. The original release date was for Tuesday. However, there were some stores that actually got memos to go ahead and push up the releases of all of their Tuesday albums to the Monday. What this actually caused was pretty great intrigue. Eminem's Recovery flew off the shelves once people realized that it had come out early, and so a lot of copies have been sold, and it actually led to a very high sales day for the store that I work at yesterday. So overall, this was a choice that was definitely best made by FYE, if not by other companies as well. Now, as far as the album itself is concerned, if you take a look at the cover, this is an album that kind of bears a very strange persona to it. Now, while all of Eminem's other albums don't exactly boast covers that seem very wacky or out of the ordinary, so to speak, they all kind of have a very serious glow to them. There's something about this one that seems very different. All of the other albums are little scenes that seem kind of desolate in nature. It's something that really kind of implies the grim mood that the album's going to be, that there's going to be a lot of comedy laced with him, but he's going to be dealing with a lot of dark subject matter. However, the cover for this particular album almost seems like he's going serious. Like, this is an album where it looks like he's growing up a little bit, and that's kind of what you think about going in, especially after you hear the first single, which was Not Afraid, which was produced by Boy Wonder. Now, that's something else that's very different about this particular album. There's a couple of different people that help produce these tracks, as opposed to just Eminem himself or Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre actually has production credits on only one track as far as I see, while there are others that were produced by DJ Khalil, Boy Wonder, Just Blaze, and Alex the Kid. Now, there's also a couple of songs that feature guest artists, and this is something that's more akin for Eminem to do with other members of either the Shady Aftermath label or just some of his friends, such as the guys from D12 and 50 Cent. However, this time, we have 4 completely different artists. Talking to Myself features an artist by the name of Kobe, who has a very R&B soul singer to it that does seem distinctly auto-tuned. The song isn't bad, but at the same time, it's definitely not a highlight. However, it's one of those songs that starts off by sounding kind of lame, and you can definitely tell the auto-tune effect, and it kind of turns you off. However, once Eminem starts rhyming and the whole thing comes together and you sort of explain the story, it's actually a pretty good track. Won't Back Down features Pink. And let me tell you, after about a minute, I had to shut this song off. It's not that it's a terrible song, it's just really out of place. I really don't like this song, and it's something that I really dislike. Both of these tracks were actually produced by DJ Khalil, making him roughly 1 for 2, and trust me, the 1 is definitely giving him a lot of credit. Going Through Changes is the 3rd track that has DJ Khalil on it, and this one is actually spectacular. This is the deja vu of this particular album. Deja Vu is, of course, off of Relapse, which told about his drug overdose and relapsing back onto prescription pills and actually ending up in the ambulance. And this actually kind of goes into it as well, but actually goes a little bit further and deeper into the side effects that it had for his family as well, not just doing it for him from his state of mind. It also samples Going Through Changes, which is an Ozzy song as well, which is pretty cool. There's actually a second song where they sample it, and that's going to be No Love, which is produced by Just Blaze and features Lil Wayne. This actually samples Hadaway's What Is Love. And this song actually is really strange. Just Blaze, of course, implies the marijuana drug culture, and at the beginning of both verses, one by Lil Wayne and the next by Eminem, they both sound just that. They sound like they're high as a kite, rhyming exceptionally slow. Slow to the point where it's almost annoying. I thought maybe this was just something that Lil Wayne was doing because that's just Lil Wayne, and Lil Wayne was high as a fucking kite. But this is actually to go to the beat, because by the time this rhyme and these verses are over, they speed up. And let me tell you something. Lil Wayne does have talent, but Eminem smokes his ass on this song. Eminem has really developed his skill to become one of the fastest, tightest rappers on the known market today. It's almost like he listened to a ton of Twista records and just decided, oh yeah, well, I'm going to try to do my best to keep pace with you. Definitely doesn't reach that pace, but he's definitely improved and gotten a lot quicker. So Bad is the track that's produced by Dr. Dre. It's track number 13. And this is probably the track that has the tightest beat on the entire album. It's excellent. It's one of those songs that you can just tell is Dr. Dre infused, even if you didn't look at the production credits. It's absolutely awesome, and I really enjoy this track a lot. The last track that features any sort of different artist is Love the Way You Lie, which was produced by Alex the Kid, and it features Rihanna. This is more of a ballad, and once again, kind of like the Pink song, I hate this song completely. It's just something that really destroys the flow of the album, but at the same time, that's something that can be said about a lot of the tracks on the second half of the album. A lot of the first half of this album is very strong. Cold Wind Blows is a fitting opener. Talking to Myself, as I said, is pretty decent. On Fire is awesome. Won't Back Down sucks. White Trash Party, or WTP, is pretty good. Going Through Changes is awesome. Not Afraid is a pretty decent single. Seduction is kind of half and half. No Love is actually really good. But then you get to Spacebound and Cinderella Man, and it all starts to go downhill. It's not so much like these songs are terrible, but it just seems like the dynamisty that this album was showing on its first half is just going downhill. These songs start running together and start to sound very clouded and diluted, something that you would kind of hear. Eminem was always one of those artists that on his earlier albums I didn't really find any bad songs on his first two LPs. These are songs that I always used to love to quote and used to rhyme whenever I was in high school. However, on this one I don't exactly see that same flow, that same continuity from start to finish. It's almost like after so long the excitement starts to wear off, and it no longer becomes like Christmas time for the white trash rap band, as opposed to it becoming more along the lines of Christmas in July, where you get specials for a little while, but then by the end, it's all shit. Overall, this is a 16-track affair. Now, there is an untitled 17th track, so let's actually take a listen to it together. Not bad. I will say one thing about this. If the tracks that have no other production credits were actually done by Eminem and produced by Eminem, he does a fairly good job on some of these, but it's about 50-50. The one thing that I have noticed about Eminem with his shady records encounters and his endeavors is that a lot of the first couple of albums that he was able to produce after its inception were very, very good, but then they started to decline. Now, I have to say one thing, admittingly. This is the album where he really feels that he has come back and really has recovered from everything. So I'm going to cut the guy a little bit of slack. However, I will have to say this. This is not your typical Eminem record where you're going to like it from start to finish. There are still a lot of kinks to be worked out, and he's still exploring with his sound a little bit. But I got to say a fair 7 out of 10 is definitely not out of the question. As far as a lot of the other rap that's out there, this is actually pretty good. Not to mention, he's still one of the only rappers out there that are white and actually are really holding their own toe-to-toe with a bunch of other people. In fact, there's a rap artist that I just met inside my own community, Mr. 724 himself, who actually rhymes with Bizarre. So, if he's able to get big, I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up on an Eminem disc. I haven't heard any of his work, so I'm not sure if he's any good or not, but he's white too, so why not? So, if you're a rap fan or just an Eminem fan in general, or if you just hate ICP and want to stick it to him, well, pick up this album. It's actually not that bad. It's not something that I'm going to shit all over, which is kind of a surprise. But at the same time, it's not something that I'm going to praise to the high heavens. It definitely has its better moments, but there's other moments where you just want to skip to the next song. There are some hard beats, but at the same time, some of them just beat hard ass.